My name is Aruna Rao, and I'm the chair of the Board of Directors of CIVICUS. The theme of this year's World Assembly is accountability. Why accountability? Let's look at some of the facts. Although last year, 23 million people around the world stood up against poverty in the largest ever mobilization in history, according to the Guinness Book of Records, the G8 countries currently are reneging on their Gleneagles commitments to debt relief as well as to development aid. Now, while we accept that overall poverty is declining, inequality within and between nations is rising sharply. And that's true whether you look at India, whether you look at Brazil, China, South Africa, and even Britain. I now have the privilege of introducing to you the Secretary General of CIVICUS, who is going to moderate this panel, Kumi Naidu. Kumi has not only ably led CIVICUS for the past almost 9 years, he is also a prominent civil society activist who has inspired many of us in this room, as well as those around the world, through his commitment and his vision for a just world. Kumi Naidu.
Thank you, Aruna. Friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the 7th CIVICUS World Assembly. You will notice as we gather here, there are 2 chairs on my extreme left with 2 photographs. One is of Daniel Bekele, another is of Netsanet Demisi. These are 2 young human rights lawyers who are leaders of the global call to action against poverty in Ethiopia, and they have been in prison for 18 months already, simply for organizing a peaceful demonstration against the fraudulent elections in 2005. So in the course of this assembly, we will be focusing on the growing number of civil society activists that are behind prison bars. And I will say more about this later, but in every plenary that we'll be having, in every mini plenary, we will keep in our hearts and our minds the memories of our brothers and sisters who are fighting the struggle for a just world from within prison bars. What, as somebody who's led the debate around accountability, what does accountability mean for you in your work?
Thanks a lot, Kumi, and thanks to CIVICUS, and thanks to all of you for having a really, I think for the first time, a very public debate about the concept of accountability, and it's really time for this debate. So I want to start with what accountability isn't to me. It's not a tool, it's not a mechanism, it's not a log frame, it's not a universal standard, it's not an evaluation, it's not any of those things that we often think about when we are grappling with how to be accountable, and generally in the NGO world, how to be accountable to the donor community. So lots and lots of people have been talking about accountability for the last decade as a tool or a mechanism, and I think it's more useful to talk about accountability as a relationship, as David Bombright and Srilata Batliwala talked about it in the paper that they prepared for this assembly. It's a relationship between people who have power, organizations that have power, and people or organizations whose actions are governed by that power, or whose potentials and possibilities are governed by that power.
You know, Lisa's given the kind of the formal line, which I think is right, and has pointed out that it really isn't about tools per se. The piece that I would add is that the history of accountability is really your history. It's the history of social movements. It's the history of civil society. That we, civil society, are the primary accountability agents through the ages.